All right, everybody get their breather. Day one of NFL free agency is just about to close. It's been 5 hours, and already the landscape of the National Football League has completely changed. We're going to get to that in just a little bit. Also, what it means for the New York Jets and Philadelphia Eagles. But let's get things rolling here on Football with Faria.
It's time for Football with Faria.
You got to get the offense right, and you got to be able to be aggressive. They put up 14 against the secondary. That is driving me up a freaking wall right now.
Now here's your host, Nick Faria.
All righty. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome inside Football with Faria. The sun is shining. The birds are singing. It's a little bit windy here in Bayside. But what a day for free agency. Holy crap. Whether it was Kirk Cousins leaving his happy home in Minnesota for the Atlanta Falcons, or the New York Giants getting swindled by their running back. Oh, boy, we're going to get to all of it today. We're going to get to all of it. Again, for those of you jumping on for the first time, thank you guys for joining. If you're watching on YouTube, click the like button, share it as well. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, also be very helpful. For those of you that are just joining on, those of you returning, welcome back. Guys, hit the comment section below. Hit the comment section here on StreamYard, on Twitter. We'll try to answer all of your questions throughout the program. Today, we're going to be on for about an hour to discuss the latest and breaking news out of the National Football League. And we'll start with the big news of the day for you Jet fans out there. We have to talk about Bryce Huff. And we have to talk about the Jets letting him walk to Philadelphia for a 3-year, $51 million deal. Now, Jet fans, I went on JetCast today on Twitter, and everyone was freaking out. Holy crap. Everyone was freaking out about Bryce Huff leaving the Jets for a 3-year, $51 million deal, which is essentially coming out to around $16, $17 million annually. I understand that the contract can get to as high as $20 million annually. Can get to that point, but it's not quite there. 3 years, $51 million is essentially a little bit more than what Hassan Reddick cost 2 years ago. Philadelphia signed him to a 3-year, $45 million deal. And they essentially gave Bryce Huff the same exact contract. And I'm going to start very briefly with the Eagles. This is obviously a surefire move. The team is going to try to move Josh Sweat. The team is going to try to move Hassan Reddick. So you need quality pass rushers. If you saw the Eagles games last year, down the stretch, they could not get after the passer to save their life. It was a no-brainer decision. No-brainer. No-brainer at all to bring in a guy like Bryce Huff. And I thought that the Jets, for 16, 17 million, I thought that that was a market the Jets should and could bring him back with. I thought they could offer a similar contract. 3 years, $51 million. That's not an overpay for a pass rusher like this. If the Eagles gave Fletcher Cox $10 million last year, and he had a bigger offer from the Jets, which has been confirmed, the Jets gave Fletcher Cox a bigger offer. Why couldn't the Jets, who value pass rushers, not give a little bit more for an edge rusher? That's going to be a question that Joe Douglas has to answer. That's going to be part of the equation, the conversation of what the Jets do in free agency. Because if they were happy enough to give Fletcher Cox $10 million or $12 million, whatever it was, because he took less to come back to Philadelphia, that's been confirmed. The Jets offered him more money. So why did they not give that to Bryce Huff? 10-plus sacks, 25 years old. Very few players like this end up on the open market, and you had the ability to either get him to a long-term deal or trade him for solid value. At most, this is going to be a fourth-round compensatory pick. Fourth round, maybe. I don't think it's enough for a third round. he would have had to have been paid a solid $20 million a year annual salary. And that's not what he got. That's not what Bryce Huff got. So in a way, he's a little bit underpaid based on what Philadelphia is giving him and what Philadelphia expects him to be. So the Jets essentially give away Bryce Huff. They're going to get a 4th-round pick next year. Philadelphia gets to reset with their pass rush. It wasn't even the biggest move of the day for them, and they're still not done. I'm trying to keep track of all the news and notes that are going on. And again, for you guys out there just joining the show, make sure you guys try to call in. The link in the description on YouTube. But if you're the Jets, and I know a lot of people are going to be pissed off. And to a point, rightfully so. Because you have seen the guard market get pummeled in free agency. Mike Hunt getting $100 million on a 5-year deal to Carolina is absurd. Absurd. And it completely alters the market. Completely alters the market. Because now Kevin Zeitler is going to look at that and say, bingo, that's the contract I want. John Simpson probably going to look around where what's his name? John Runyon got with the New York Giants, 3 years, $30 million. And I don't think the Giants had a bad day at all. The Giants have been reactionary post the Saquon Barkley news, and we're going to get to that in a little bit. Well, we will. I will be addressing it. But there are still guards out there for the Jets to be able to acquire. This is not the be-all, end-all. If you missed out on Mike Hunt and John Runyon, but there's still Zeitler. There's still Simpson. On Wenwu. Players that are pretty solid at their position that you can acquire. Not the end of the world. There's still Tyron Smith. David Bakhtiari got released. If you have a combination, I'm going to throw this out here. If you bring in David Bakhtiari in free agency and you bring Michael Onwenu in free agency, that's your offensive line adjustments. You just need 2 signings. You don't have to overpay for these guys. You get 2 quality signings there, and all of a sudden your offensive line problems are gone because you can move Onwenu to left guard, you keep Bakhtiari at the left side, and you have and draft the next tackle of the future with the 10th overall pick. That is a solid free agency plan along the offensive line. And as of right now, as I'm talking 5:13 in the afternoon, both players are still available. So it's not time for the Jets to panic. I know you guys are upset. I know you guys are frustrated. You watch Philadelphia make these moves. You watch the Giants respond. But let's pump the brakes here. Let's pump the brakes. We're going to address Joe Douglas as well. But if I'm looking at the Jets, did I want them to bring back Bryce Huff on that kind of contract? I thought the contract was certainly serviceable. And guys, let me know what you think. There's 350 people watching. I greatly appreciate all you guys watching for the first time if possible. But for those of you wanting to chime in, call in, let me know. Let me know what you guys think about the Bryce Huff deal. I thought it was fair. I thought the Jets should have been able to match. And they wanted to see what the market looked like. I totally understand that. And there are some teams that have been like that. The Dallas Cowboys have been very quiet. Very quiet. And they're a contender. The 49ers just made their first signing, and it's Leonard Floyd. It's not the biggest thing in the world. So we can look at some of these contenders and say, oh, this is the worst thing possible. What is Joe Douglas doing? My God, wake up, Joe. Breathe. Breathe. It's day one. It's day one, and there's still plenty of safeties. There's still plenty of edge rushers. There's still plenty of offensive linemen. There's all these pieces that you can go and get. And if you guys see me looking away, apologies. That's just me keeping along with the breaking news around the NFL. Nothing yet, though, for the Jets. Nothing yet for the Giants. And Philadelphia Just going back to the negotiating table, as always. Before I get to Saquon, though, we do have a caller. It is Ishan. Ishan, how's everything going?
Doing good. A little jealous that the Eagles are making more moves than my team, than the Jets.
Thank you. Thank you.
But yeah, I think the Huff one I was texting. I live in South Jersey, so I was texting all my buddies that I was talking to them beforehand because I was paying attention to your tweets and that you said Huff would be ideally what the Eagles would go for, and they were all kind of excited when I told them that, and then now it happened. They're really even more excited. But yeah, I was shocked by that. And I was on all the Jets Twitter spaces today. Everyone was upset about that.
Yeah.
The Will McDonald thing, I know you hear this all the time, Nick, is that like it's just the Will McDonald, like the fans kind of like upset about drafting him. And I'm not upset about drafting him because now looking back at it, it seemed like they didn't even have like what's his name? The Steelers left tackle.
Broderick Jones.
Yeah, it didn't even seem like they even had him on the board. So it was like, what was going to really, I mean, they went with the pick they went with, and they, Bryce Huff, I think deservingly, do you think that the fact that obviously it's definitely, the relationship, I don't know how it was between him and the front office, but the fact that he gave them so many opportunities to extend him and they didn't take any of those opportunities is why he just signed right away?
I think it's a little bit of everything. It's a great question. I do have one for you. I have the name right, Ishan?
Ishan.
Apologies on the mispronunciation. But it's a great question because I think what it really came down to is Bryce Huff has never seen this kind of money before. He's an undrafted free agent out of Memphis, kind of before the NIL money really started to take off. So he's been essentially veteran minimum rookie deals throughout his entire career to this point, and he has continued to get better. Obviously, analytically, he's one of the best edge rushers in football, gets after the passer at just an absurd rate. So when the Jets came calling and they put that second-round tender on him last year, he essentially said, give me the offer. If not, I'm going to ball out and get my money, and I'm going to get the best offer for me. And this guy most likely has never seen the kind of offer that he got from Philadelphia. And Philadelphia, I'm sure everyone heard about it. They were in on Bryce Huff very, very early. They were in on Saquon Barkley very early. There's very few times I have ever seen Howie Roseman tip his hand like he did in this free agent class. And when he does that, he's usually getting the guy he wants. And if you're going to be negotiating against Howie Roseman, you better come with a pretty damn good deal like the Packers did with Xavier McKinney. I do have one question, though, for you, because as a Jets fan, and I'm dying to hear this from Jet fans, because I see the difference between what Jet fans are reacting to regarding Bryce Huff and what Giant fans are doing regarding Saquon Barkley. Why do you guys not have that mindset with Bryce Huff, trying to go back to the team that gave him the opportunity in the first place?
Why are we upset, you said?
No, why are you upset at the team more than the player?
I think it's because I think that the coaching staff is very aware, I feel like, of how good he is. And I think that I really do believe that I think Saleh was very sure of the type of player he was going to be. And it just makes me upset that the fact that we developed him and we had him, like, I mean, he outperformed. Like, he was better than Carl Lawson. I mean, they spend money. That was another thing they brought up. A lot of fans brought up. We had no problem paying Carl Lawson the money we paid him, but we couldn't pull out the checkbook for him. And which was, I think that's why a lot of people got mad. It's just like, they didn't even, like, it seems like they didn't even try. Like, they just kind of like, and it's like similar to the Saquon thing, like for the Giants fans. They didn't even try.
Like, I think the difference with Saquon is Giants fans are blaming Saquon.
Yeah.
Jet fans are blaming the Jets, not Bryce Huff. And granted, and Ishan, thank you for the call. Hopefully you guys call in. This is the first time you've been on the show, so appreciate it. But I'm going to continue rolling here. Thanks so much, man. The reason why I wanted to ask that question was simple. Because if you listen to Giant fans right now, they are off their freaking rocker. And they've had a good day. The Giants have had a very good free agency day. Bring in Devin Singletary on a good team-friendly deal. John Runyon. They essentially traded their running back for Philadelphia's son. They had a good day. And Saquon Barkley is what, 27? He's going into the prime of his career, if that. But Giant fans are adamantly angry at Saquon for signing the contract he has always wanted with Philadelphia. They're not angry at the Giants for letting him walk. They're angry at Saquon for choosing Philadelphia. And granted, it's the NFC East rivalry. I totally understand. Totally get it. But what does that say between the Jets and the Giants? The Giants haven't had a lot more success than the Jets. They have one playoff win in the last decade. They've been to the playoffs once. Well, really twice, but they got blown out in the other one. Does it really count? The Giants have not had this tremendous amount of more success than the New York Jets in the last decade. And Saquon has been one of the few players to give them something to root for. And instead of being thankful, instead of saying, hey, he's a running back, let him get his money elsewhere, they are adamantly against him. Adamantly against him. And it blows my mind. Listen, I understand the division rivalries. I get it. But when DeMarco Murray left for Philadelphia in 2015, he left Dallas after an all-pro season, went to Philadelphia, and most Cowboy fans understood. Hey, he wanted his money, he got his money. Brought in Philadelphia. That's fine, whatever. And it blew up in Philly's face. But there are Giant fans adamantly angry at Saquon for getting the money the Giants refused to pay him. What? Think about that. This is why I will commend Jet fans to the ends of the earth. I think you guys are absolutely fantastic. And I don't completely agree. With some of the takes. I think part of the conversation is a little over the top right now. I think you guys are a little agitated, little on the deep end early on in free agency. But you guys are looking at the organization as the reason why things aren't going your way. At the people that have the decision-making process, the people that are in charge. You have anger at the right people. Giant fans are just angry. They're angry at their organization for giving Daniel Jones $150 million of a long-term extension. They're not angry at them for giving Daniel Jones a contract. They're angry at Saquon Barkley because Saquon chose the better organization and the better offensive line over the last decade. I look at the comparison. Jet fans are angry at the organization for letting a great pass rusher walk. That's fair. That's very fair. Giant fans are angry at the running back because his position is devalued and he got the money he's been begging for 3 years. Give me a break. Gonna get Johnny on the phone here. Johnny, how's everything going?
Dude, we were just talking about Saquon last week and done, man. I hear you. Dude, what? That's crazy, man. That's awesome for you guys. And then Bryce Huff, I mean, I'm not upset about it. It is what it is. I'm trusting in what Joe D and the coaching staff is wanting to do because my whole thing is that we really don't know what he could possibly be. Yes, 10 sacks. I'm not saying that are we going to miss that? Yeah, we are. But I mean, like I said from jump, the whole time when he said, I'm not giving the Jets a hometown discount and all that, I didn't like that. I never liked that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he could have worded it another way or said, you know, I believe in myself, so I'm going to go out there and see what they have, you know, and I want to be a Jet. Keep it at that, and then, you know, that sounds a lot more better than saying I'm not going to give them a hometown discount. I mean,
John, let me ask you, because I think this is where I'll step in and sort of come to Huff's defense a little bit, because this isn't a player that was drafted in the first or second round who's made his money consistently at a high position of value. This is a guy that was undrafted, didn't get the money, had to earn everything he's gotten to this point, hasn't had a lot of playing time. Isn't he allowed the opportunity to go and earn that contract and basically put everyone up and saying, I'm an undrafted free agent. I need my goddamn money. Give me my money.
I 100% agree with that. I'm not trying to say anything to that extent
Gotcha.
at all,
Okay.
because he needs to get the bag. And I mean, for the amount that he's going to be making, could the Jets have done that? Yes, I believe so. But again, like we've talked about it, we have so many holes right now that 17 mil could have gone to one of these other linemen that are out there to go ahead and plug that, because we do have a Will McDonald, right? Because we still don't know what we have with him, right? I mean, it is what
Although
it
I'm
is.
very high on him. I'm like, if you look at his metrics, and I said this on a tweet a couple days ago, Bryce Huff is an undrafted player, a diamond in the rough, and you got him. Will McDonald was a first-round talent. And
Exactly.
first-round talents, you are not expecting him to be Bryce Huff. You're not expecting Will McDonald to be Bryce Huff. You're expecting him to be above what Bryce Huff could become as a first-round pick.
Exactly. And that's what I'm saying. Like, everybody's upset. Does it sting? Yeah, it stings. But it is what it is. We can't do anything about it anymore. It's done. Unfortunately, it is a business, right? And I mean, you guys, the Eagles, they got a dog. I mean, I hope that he produces what he was producing over here with the Jets and everything, and we will see, right? Because I mean, and I'm not trying to sound like anything but playing devil's advocate at this point, right? But what if he goes over there, right, and he doesn't do anything?
Yeah.
How pissed at that point, and then everybody's gonna be like, "Oh my God, JD knew what he was talking about," blah blah blah. Or if he goes over there, it's another, John Abraham all over again
Hugh
for the
Douglas.
Jets.
Hugh Douglas literally had, like, Philadelphia. It could be something 20 years ago that we all saw. Douglas comes in, he becomes an all-pro for Philly, dominates at the position, and Philadelphia goes and creates a championship window from there. Like, I get that point, and I totally understand that. But if you're the Jets, and I'll ask you this, Johnny, as a parting question. If you're the Jets, Zeitler is still available. Bakhtiari is still available. What's his name? Calvin Ridley's still available. Hollywood Brown is still available. There's a lot of still guys available on the open market in positions that the Jets are going to be able to go after. Do you feel that most Jet fans are right in being this reactionary this early on in free agency?
No, I mean, free agency started 5 hours ago, 5.5 hours ago. Not the real good players are all going to get signed that quickly right now. A lot of these vets are waiting. Aaron Jones is out there. I would love Aaron Jones to be our RB2, RB3 over here with us. Bakhtiari, I mean, I think he did a cryptic farewell thing by playing that Frank Sinatra My Way, right? Showing Aaron Rodgers there, showing him blocking and things like that. I mean, I think we're in a good place. I think because back in the day, we would have signed somebody for a huge amount, right, just to make everybody happy, but then dismiss all the other holes that we need to go ahead and have at the moment, right? Because if we're all in it, they need to play the right way because we don't have a lot of money. And that's the other thing that people don't understand. We really don't.
I get it. I completely agree. Johnny, thank you so much for jumping in, man. We'll see if we can bring you on later on the show. We just had a little bit of breaking news. Frankie Louvu, the linebacker, signing with the Washington Commanders, a 3-year deal, $36 million. For those of you that are watching that are Eagle fans, that is going to set the linebacker market. If you look at a guy like Aziz Al-Shair, that's a player that Philadelphia could target. That's probably going to be the market for him. $36 million, 3 years. Going to be very interesting to see what the franchise does. And we can talk about Saquon Barkley and all the stuff that goes into it. And it's a great move for the franchise. It's 100% a great move for the franchise. You're not going to get me to say anything bad about paying a running back when you have the best offensive line in football, even with your Hall of Fame center retiring. The Eagles have 2 All-Pros, 2 Pro Bowlers already on the offensive line, and you had just said goodbye to a Hall of Famer. They should be set on the offensive line, no matter what. Adding Saquon Barkley adds a completely different dimension to the team. And people are going to say, well, yeah, you shouldn't pay a running back. But then you look at what the San Francisco 49ers are doing. They paid Christian McCaffrey. And you look and say, okay, who are the powers in the NFC? You've got the Detroit Lions, the San Francisco 49ers, Philadelphia, Atlanta now maybe, because Atlanta's going to get a lot better with Kirk Cousins. But if you look at the big contenders in the NFC, the biggest is obviously the 49ers, and you need to do everything possible to try and find an offense that is not only going to fit the scheme of Kellen Moore, but that is going to be good enough to compete with the 49ers. And this is the one thing that I look at with Howie Roseman. People are going to talk about Joe Douglas being his disciple, and this is what blows me away about Douglas. Douglas has been at the altar of Roseman for a while. He was there for 3-4 years. He has seen the joys of being aggressive in free agency at the trade deadline and seen what can come out of it. Philadelphia won a Super Bowl when he was the director of player personnel. And the fact that he is not, he's just choosing at times to stay passive, it blows my mind. I'm not saying that he's wrong to be quiet at the start of free agency. That's not what I'm saying. Because you can find good value, and there's still good value at every position. But when I look at Joe Douglas, and I have to ask this question, I put this up here because so many people got angry today, just asking and making jokes at Joe Douglas's expense. But if you're looking at Joe Douglas, the one thing that I can't fathom is you have needs at the offensive line, receiver, safety, running back. And to be passive, to be quiet at the start is something that I just don't fully comprehend. And I know this is how he's done things because of when he was with Ozzie Newsome with the Baltimore Ravens. But he has seen the modern league change to, if you want a championship, you better go out and get one. He's not doing that. And that's what's kind of confusing to me. For you Jet fans out there, give me your points. Let me know what you guys think. But if I'm looking at what the Jets are trying to do and what Joe Douglas is trying to do, I don't see a guy that's all in on trying to win a championship. Or at the very least, waiting to see what the market happens and see whatever happens, we'll be okay with. Well, what happens if Michael Onwenu signs a deal elsewhere and Zeitler signs a deal elsewhere? Who's the left guard? This is kind of the balance that you have to have. Philadelphia is in an interesting position because they had close to $50 million in salary cap space. They have plenty of money, and they have plenty of draft capital. Philadelphia could stop free agency right now, go through the draft, sign the next available free agent, and be perfectly fine with the offseason. The Jets don't have the draft capital that the Eagles have. They don't have the salary cap space that Philadelphia has. And that's why if you're Douglas, you have to find and pick your spots. And in that way, I completely understand them being a little bit passive to start free agency, particularly when you look at the contract that Mike Hunt got. 5 years, $100 million. Jesus Christ. Blew my mind that he would be able to get that. Blew my mind. But again, there's a point of being aggressive and there's a point of being passive. And this, so far, screams a little bit of passiveness to me. I don't want to get the hands dirty just yet. Calvin Ridley's still a free agent. Let's see what happens. And I don't know if that's the right move. I don't know if that is. One other breaking news piece that's going on right now is the conversation of Brian Burns, pass rusher for the Carolina Panthers. A lot of people tying the New York Giants to them. And let me tell you, with Lou Vu, the linebacker, going to Washington, they're clearly stocking up people on the defensive side. Philadelphia clearly addressing their needs. The Giants are addressing their needs too. The only one in the NFC East that hasn't done anything is the Dallas Cowboys. The only team that hasn't done a single thing. Pretty crazy when you think about that. Pretty crazy. But in the NFC East, this is a bloodbath. This is what the NFC East should be. The NFL is better when you have the NFC East as a bloodbath, because they are the division that is the most historical of any other. You want to talk about the AFC West? Fine. But the Eagles, Giants, Commanders, and Cowboys have hated each other for half a century. For some of them, over a century. They have hated each other. And the problem is, for a good portion of the last decade, the Commanders and Giants have stunk so bad that it's essentially a division between Philadelphia and Dallas. That is where we are at, essentially. But if I'm the Giants, I need to do everything possible to compete. And I'm not sitting here saying that the Giants letting Saquon Barkley walk is a travesty. They understand where they're at. Their offensive line is not ready. The offensive line is not ready at all. And they need some pass rushers too. Brian Burns is a quality pass rusher, and he would make that defense better. But losing Xavier McKinney is going to hurt. They're still going to have a lot of questions in the secondary, and we still don't know who's going to be playing linebacker for him outside of Okereke. The Giants' defensive line is always going to be their calling card, and a trade for Brian Burns is the move that sort of brings that together, sort of gets back to the old ways of how the Giants used to win football. But do you trust Daniel Jones to be your quarterback? You have the Giants have the 6th overall pick. There are going to be teams that trade into the top 5. The Chargers and Cardinals are going to be up for business. And if you draft J.J. McCarthy, you are now saying that you are resetting your team with the rookie quarterback contract. And that's perfectly fine. And I think most Giant fans will be very happy about that. And if you trade Brian Burns and you miss out on McCarthy, and you have to draft a Malik Neighbors or a Romeo Odunze, yeah, those are great players. Are they going to be good enough to beat the NFC East? Cowboys secondary is still pretty solid. They're getting Trayvon Diggs back. The Commanders' defense is going to look a lot better. Philadelphia's defense is going to have a complete overhaul at almost every position. As good as Brian Burns is, can he beat the tackles in the division? That's going to be the question. The Giants played the run very well last year at times. And people are going to say, yeah, well, Saquon Barkley, it's not going to be a very good day for him against the Giants at MetLife. But you never know. I would take A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith on the passing attack over others. But if you're the Jets, and I want to transition this back to them, because if we have, okay. Going through, apparently there's a free agent signing by Mac Wilson. That's interesting. But anyway, if you're the Jets and you're looking at the AFC East, obviously the Buffalo Bills are going to be the team that you look out for. The Buffalo Bills, the defending champs, they've run this division since Tom Brady retired. Perfectly fine. Buffalo has lost plenty of starters on their defensive end, and they haven't really solved all of them yet. Again, still early in free agency, but they haven't really solved a lot of players, solved a lot of their issues. And then you look at the Dolphins. Their defense has been completely gashed. Christian Wilkins, now in Las Vegas. Xavier Howard, free agent. The safety room, gone. If you look at the Miami Dolphins right now, you cannot tell me that if the Jets were to just bring in a couple of different guys, a couple starting caliber players, that they can't compete in this division. Even now, guys, the Dolphins are getting demolished in free agency. They're getting absolutely killed. The Bills don't have a lot of salary cap space. They're still having a lot of needs. The offensive line's a question. The secondary is going to be a question. We're talking day one winners. And the Jets haven't done a thing. And people are going to be upset about it. But am I going to sit here and hit the panic button simply because, oh, well, they didn't sign this guy and they didn't sign that guy and, oh, and, you know, they need a guard and a tackle and they need a safety and they haven't signed a receiver yet. It's day one and the market is being set. And yes, I think Joe Douglas should have made a move, or at least been a little bit more aggressive in some of the names that he's going after. Jonah Jackson's probably the one that I looked at the most and said, this is the deal that Douglas should have made. But there are plenty of free agents that are going to be available. We talk about the receiver position. Calvin Ridley's still available. Hollywood Brown's still available. Those are number 2 guys that can help this team out right away. Or how about running back? People are going to say, we shouldn't sign Aaron Rodgers' friends because Aaron Rodgers' friends aren't good. Are we going to say that about Aaron Jones? Aaron Jones just got released by the Green Bay Packers because they brought in Josh Jacobs. And I don't really know why Green Bay did that. I'm not really sure why they cut him because I felt that him and Jacobs would really solidify the running back room. Why not Aaron Jones? I understand he was hurt last year, but if we're talking about what the Jets need, a quiet need on the organization is getting someone to spell Breece Hall for a little bit. You didn't have it with Dalvin Cook. You can't really trust Israel Abanikanda yet. So why not Aaron Jones? If the Jets were to come out, and I'm going to ask you guys this, let me know what you guys think. There's over half 1,000 people watching. Again, appreciate all of you guys jumping on. If the Jets were to come out and sign David Bakhtiari and sign on Wenwu and bring in Aaron Jones, is that not a solid start to the offseason? Is that not what people would be wanting? Additional assets on the offense? Solidification of the offensive line? Isn't that what Jets fans should be looking for? And again, people are going to look at this and say, well, yeah, but they've got so many other issues. Of course, like every other team. It's day one. Philadelphia has signed Saquon Barkley and Bryce Huff. They have solidified 2 needs on their roster. And they still have needs at safety. They still have needs at linebacker, at corner, and they probably still need another guard. All of those needs are still there. And they're going to probably need to sign multiple people. Am I going to get angry at the fact that Philadelphia has not solved their biggest problems? Of course not. Because Philadelphia understands, okay, we've got our 2 big ones. We're going to stay aggressive, and we're going to see what other guys and contracts we can get. I look at this. I look at this organization in Philadelphia, and I see a lot of the Jets in them. And the only difference in a lot of ways is Philadelphia is ultra aggressive, and the Jets are more on the passive side. They have the same philosophy. Their teams, their philosophy is building through the trenches. The Jets have a great defensive line, even without Bryce Huff. The Eagles have a great defensive line and offensive line. The Jets are trying to solidify their offensive line. Both teams are made by their starting quarterbacks. Essentially, both teams are. What do the Jets do in free agency? What are they going to do in day 2, day 3, when these conversations really pick up? That's going to be the question. And people are upset now because of the moves that they haven't made. But what happens when they make a move and you don't like the length of the contract? The one thing that I'll say, you guys are great. Jet fans are absolutely phenomenal. I'm going to have very, very little patience for those that get angry when the Jets sign someone at a position of need and everyone's like, oh, this is an overpay. No, not that guy. I want that guy. Scouting matters. If the team feels that one particular player is a better fit for their organization than another, then you sign that one. And of course, the player I'm mentioning, the conversation, that point is between David Bakhtiari and Tyron Smith. Both players, Tyron Smith and Bakhtiari, are two players that have been dealing with injuries left and right. Neither have been healthy for the last decade. They're still, when healthy, all-pro talents. Completely all-pro talents. If I am the Jets, you take the one that fits your organization well, and if that's Bakhtiari, then that's Bakhtiari. They can solidify their tackle with that need right there. Boom. And then you have Carter Warren and Max Mitchell as the backups. And then you draft Olu Fashanu or Talise Fuaga. You have those guys solidified. All that makes sense. Question is everyone going to have the patience to let that go? That's the question. And people are going to say, well, yeah, they could solidify the offensive line, but they need a receiver. And they haven't signed a receiver. But then you look at the receivers that have been signed, and it's Gabe Davis for 3 years and $11 million annually. Nothing has happened yet. The majority of the positions that have been signed are positions that the Jets aren't going after and aren't going to spend a massive amount of money. The Jets were never going to spend massive money, on a pass rusher. They weren't going to spend massive money on a running back. And yes, they want to address the offensive line, and a lot of guards have gone. But there are a lot of guards still available. There's still a lot of them. Zeitler is probably the top one. But if you look at all these guys, and you look at all the guys that are available, and you can clearly see that you're in a positive situation. You're not desperate. Just look at the list. Dalton Risner, Zeitler. I'm reading through the entire list. And I'm looking at it. I'm like, oh, this guy could work. This guy could work. Like, there's people available here that can be successful with the Jets. There's still guys that can help the Jets in the long term. It's not the end of the world that they haven't made a move. And again, I'm separating objective fact from my own opinion here. The Jets fans should not be panicking. If I'm not panicking about my team not signing a safety, linebacker, and corner, you shouldn't be panicking about the offensive line just yet. Put it that way. All right? Put it that way. That doesn't mean, though, that I think Joe Douglas is right to not jump in right away. Because I feel that if you look at some of these top teams that are trying to go for championships, they have been aggressive. The Packers, the Eagles. There are some contending teams that have been passive, but that's mostly because of their salary cap spot, not because they don't have money. The Jets have money. They have ways to create more money. A simple restructure to C.J. Mosley gives the Jets close to $40 million in cap space. Right off the bat. Close to $40 million. Right now. So it's their choice to be passive. It's their choice not to say, okay, we want to go after the top guys right now. This is what we're talking about here. It's the difference between being aggressive and being passive. Not about being smart. It's about being aggressive and being passive. Because no one's going to argue that Joe Douglas waiting for the market to come to him is a bad move. That's how a lot of smart GMs are. But he can dictate the market based on his aggressiveness. And that's what Howie Roseman did. Bryce Huff's contract came under Grenard. The Minnesota Vikings signed the Texans pass rusher Gennard for just under $20 million. I think it was around like $19 million. And he's essentially had the same career as Bryce Huff. Philadelphia got Huff for cheaper in a per year salary basis because they dictated the market and were aggressive. The Jets not doing that allows the market to come to them. And there's a good side to that, but it's very frustrating when you look at it. It's very frustrating when you get to that point. Got 600 views here, guys. Thank you guys so much. For those of you that are jumping on for the first time, if you guys want to call in, of course, the link in the description is down below on YouTube. Obviously, like, share, subscribe to the channel on YouTube. All of that's greatly appreciated. Or follow me on Twitter at Nick_Faria1720. It's that beautiful little insignia there. We'll bring Johnny back on, though. Johnny, any other additional thoughts today, bud?
Yeah, Nick, I had another question, right? With the whole T. Higgins conversation that they're not, well, he pretty much is wanting a trade.
Yeah.
Right? What would it take for the Jets to go ahead and make that happen? And then the other part of my question, with Kirk out of Minnesota, right? There's rumblings now of Jefferson, right?
Yeah.
What would that take? Wanted to get your thoughts on that. Of course, would that hurt our future if we were to go ahead and bring those people in?
Well, listen, again, Johnny, great call, great question. The one thing that I will say about Justin Jefferson, I don't think it's going to happen because Minnesota is going to want dependable guys. They aren't looking at a rebuild. They're looking at a retool without Kirk Cousins. They feel, and it sounds like Sam Darnold's going to be the guy that they try to bring in and see if they can build around. But I don't truly think that they're getting rid of Justin Jefferson. T. Higgins is another thing entirely. I thought that the Bengals were going to have to trade him eventually because Higgins can essentially sit out and not play for a year and still be a quality receiver. Still be a quality guy. The Bengals not paying up. That's Mike Brown for you, but that's not the end of the world. They can trade him. And the Jets should be able to give a second, maybe a fourth, and try to get that conversation going. Will it happen? I don't know. Because if you look at T. Higgins and you look at, obviously, Justin Jefferson, it's going to cost an arm and a leg. That's why, if you're the Jets, in my opinion, you don't go after those guys. You go after Courtland Sutton. The Denver Broncos are completely breaking their team apart. Garrett Bowles is going to be available. Sutton's going to be available. They already cut Justin Simmons. The Broncos are completely blowing this up. Completely blowing it up. And if you can get Sutton for a 4th and a 5th round pick, a little bit more than Jerry Jeudy got when his trade to Cleveland this past weekend, if you can get a little bit more there, I think ultimately you're looking at a pretty solid 1-2 combo. Sutton and Garrett Wilson, that's a great receiver duo. You put less pressure on Allen Lazard. You can stretch the middle of the field. That's a really good trade. And if the Jets were to trade for Sutton, bring in Bakhtiari, sign a guard, whether it's Dalton Risner, whether it's Zeitler, Onwenu, that's a good free agency. That's an aggressive one. And they still have the ability to do that. They still have the chance and the options available to do that. It's just a matter of if and when. And if Douglas is going to be willing to part with late round picks. He should. This could be his last year. Go all in. Go all in. Don't just wait. Don't let the market dictate to you. This could be your last year as general manager for the New York Jets. Make a move. I have a question here and a commenter from Brandon the Ruiner. Do you think the Jets will go after Aaron Jones to help the running back room? And he is a Rodgers boy. Listen, I addressed this earlier in the show, and I do think that this is going to make a lot of sense. A lot of sense. Because if you are looking at what the Jets want. They want to make Aaron Rodgers happy. And if you want to make Aaron Rodgers happy, you bring in some of his friends from Green Bay, Bakhtiari, Aaron Jones. Everyone is angry, but Marquez Valdez-Scantling has New York Jet written all over him. He's not going to be signed as the number 2, but he'll be signed as a depth piece, a solid 4-5 to replace Randall Cobb. That makes sense in that way. But you got to better make sure that you trade for Courtland Sutton. So I think Aaron Jones absolutely is up for conversation. I know that he's got a robust market right now, as Diana Rossini said. Another free agent coming out, Marcus Davenport just signed with the Lions. I'll tell you what, guys. You want to talk about some big free agent winners? The NFC North and NFC East are going to be insane next year. The Giants are going to be better. It sounds like the Brian Burns trade has a lot of traction and probably could get done in the near future. Burns with Kayvon Thibodeau is going to be very interesting. There's going to be some things here in the NFC East that's great. But how about the North, too? The Packers are going to be really good. The Lions are still contenders. And the Bears have been quietly having a great offseason. Very, very solid. We'll take one final call today, and it's Connor, man. Hey, buddy, what's up?
Hey, Nick, how you doing?
Good, good. How's everything going?
Rough start to free agency. I mean,
Who?
For the Jets.
Who's?
I know your Eagles have been just feasting. I mean, Saquon, and then that Huff deal was just, oh my God, I would do that deal with the Jets. Honestly,
it made a lot of sense.
I know. Made a ton of sense. I actually called Huff to the Eagles, I think week 17 it might have been. I said Huff was going to go to the Eagles. I knew he was gone once he got to like the 8-10 sack range.
Mm-hmm.
I knew the Jets were going to have to give him up, unfortunately. I'm the first to tell you Joe Douglas is a horrible general manager, but I'm gonna defend him here a little against the fans just because of we're not even a day into free agency. We're 5 hours and 6 hours and 57 minutes into free agency right now, or the legal tampering period, or whatever it's called.
Mm-hmm.
And people are already going after Joe Douglas for all this crazy nonsense. Like, we didn't sign this guy. Like, Robert Hunt, I know a lot of Jets fans were happy we didn't give that, but 5 years for $100 million, $20 million a year is crazy. Like, that guy's a very, very solid player, but he's not $20 million good. Like, I'd rather just go out and get like a cheap guy. Like, honestly, if that at that rate, like Lakin, obviously great move that we cut him, but I'd rather just go out and get like a Zeitler or someone like him, who we can get for way cheaper, and kind of plug him in at guard, and he'll be solid, an older veteran. Cushenberry, I thought, was a good option, but I believe he got signed.
He did, yep.
Yeah, and I do expect the Jets to be more active on the second wave of free agency. I really do. I like, if you look, they had like DJ Reed was signed at the very end of free agency with the Jets, and he was one of the best signings in the past years with Joe Douglas. But good for Huff. I think he deserves the money, and I think if the Jets matched his offer, he would still probably go to the Eagles. I mean, just because look at that team. That team is crazy, and I'm happy going to the Eagles, though. I'm happy Sirianni's coming back, because I thought that whole saga with not coming back, like, they did choke in the playoffs, they did, but I mean, come on, he brought you to the Super Bowl the year before. You can't look at a coach like that and say, like, if Robert Saleh's employed in the NFL, Nick Sirianni should. I mean, I guess that you cannot. Well, the teams are different. The Eagles have way more talent, but if he's employed in the NFL, Nick Sirianni better be employed. Nick, thank you for taking my call.
Yeah, appreciate it, Connor, and I think it's a great call to end on. I completely understand and agree a little bit with Joe Douglas. I don't like the passiveness. I don't think he's a horrible GM. I think that this is kind of what he does, and there are some times where it works, and there are other times where it blows up in his face, like last year. And the unfortunate side of things is he cannot afford to have this blow up in his face anymore. This is it. Get it right or get out. That's the theme of the Jets 2024 season. Get it right or get out. And you better make sure the free agents fit the scheme, the personnel, The coaching staff, Zeitler, as Connor said, makes a lot of sense. Bakhtiari makes a lot of sense. I like Tyler Boyd in the slot. These guys are available. These guys are going to be available. It's going to be very interesting to see where the Jets go in the coming weeks. But for those of you that are angry, those of you that are frustrated, remember, a Super Bowl is not won on day one of free agency. It's never won. Sometimes the biggest winners end up having it blown up in their face. So that's my parting words to you. Not the end of the world that they haven't done anything. Obviously a little frustrating, but they could be a better team in the long run for not making some of the moves that they made. All right, that'll do it here for today. We're going to be back on Wednesday for the official start date of the new league year and the 2024 free agent class. For those of you that are watching, we had our highest show today, 640 viewers. Thank you guys so much for jumping on. Appreciate all of you that jumped on. For those of you that are new, again, like, share, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and also follow me on Twitter. All that's going to be appreciated. And I will see you guys all on Wednesday. Thank you again so much.